It's time to talk about another great gun for the first-time gun buyer. It's the Taurus G2c, and we're going to talk about it today, coming up. Hey folks, and welcome to 9mm Tuesdays, where we talk about guns, gear, and shooting in a little bit more depth than what we do on Thursday. So today we're going to talk about what I consider another absolutely fantastic gun for the first-time gun buyer. Now, I did that review on the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ 9mm. Fantastic first gun for anybody. However, it's not the cheapest gun on the planet, and maybe you're not sure if this is really going to be for you. Maybe you're stopping by in the gun world and you'll just be passing through, and you don't want to put a whole lot of money into something that may not be part of your lifestyle for the long term. There is no better choice, in my mind, than the Taurus G2c. We're going to talk about it today and why it's such a good choice. But before we do, just remember, if you like the content that we're getting out to you here, if you're enjoying it, like the video, share it with some friends, tell them about it. If they're thinking about getting a gun, haven't made any decisions yet, this is going to be a great video for them, along with that review of the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ. Have them take a look at these. These are two great choices for somebody that's on the fence about whether they're going to get involved or not. So like the video, share it with your buddies. Subscribe to the channel, and when you subscribe, that bell will come up and ring it. We'll let you know that something else is coming down the pike, and we put something out every Tuesday and Thursday, so there's something for you to see every week. So stay tuned and join us on this little adventure we're on. So with that said, the Taurus G2c is a really interesting weapon because of the previous history of the Taurus company. When I first was involved with, in my adulthood, not my youth, but in my adulthood with weapons, Taurus was kind of a joke. People said you could flip a coin and you had a 50-50 shot of you getting a good weapon or a bad one from the company. The quality control was horrible. The reliability was poor. It just had a horrible reputation in the gun business. You bought it because you had to, not because you wanted to. It was cheap. That's why you bought it. Well, it's still cheap, but now everybody wants it. This is one of the biggest selling weapons over the last 5 years. And because of that, and an incredible aftermarket industry has built up around the Taurus G2c, the G3, and the brand new G3c, which has just come out, and some of the aftermarket stuff is applicable to that weapon, and undoubtedly a lot more will follow. Taurus has taken the industry by storm, by price point and quality. It's hard to find a negative review about these G-series, these recent G-series weapons, from any expert that you care to name. All of the big names in the gun channels, like me, just kidding, you can change that, work on it. Okay, but anyway, but the big names are all on board with the Taurus. It started out, their rebirth as a company started out with the Millennium series, which started in 2005. And they started to make weapons that started to take some notice. In 2013, the G series came out. And some of the changes were minor between the Millennium series and the G series. The stippling on the grips became more aggressive on the G series. One of the big things that changed was that in the Millennium series, there was a safety that was actually a lock. You could actually lock the weapon so it couldn't be used, and you could leave it out on the night table. Nobody could make it fire unless you unlocked it. This was not a popular feature. This became a bone of contention, and it slowed down the Millennium series, which otherwise was getting really, really good press. When they came out with the G series, they dropped the lock, and that unlocked the sales on the G series compared to the Millenniums, and they have exploded ever since. So we're going to take a look at the G2c today. Now the G2c, C stands for compact. It's a small weapon, 3.5-inch barrel, very petite, but not so small that you can't get a real good grip on it. We're going to talk about that, and I'll show you what I mean. But it's a compact, and it has a big brother, the G3, which has a longer barrel, bigger gun, a longer sight radius, the distance from the rear to the front sight. And that helps in terms of accuracy. But the G2c is pretty darn accurate. And much better shooters than me have proven that repeatedly. And you can go and search that out if you like. But the G2c is a compact weapon that has so many applications. If this could be, if you don't become all wound up in pistols and guns like I have, and so many of the people watching have, if it's the one gun that you ever buy, it can do everything well. There are guns in every category of what you would want to do that do those things better. Make no mistake about it. It's not a miracle weapon, but it's small enough to conceal carry. I'll show you that. It has enough of a capacity of rounds, and it's chambered in 9mm, so it's a perfectly reasonable self-defense weapon. It's shipped with two 12-round magazines, making it very applicable to home defense. There are enough rounds that if something egregious was happening, you would have enough rounds to take care of it. It's accurate enough to be able to use on targets, and you could certainly get started with competition shooting, like IDPA, with a G2c. Is it the ideal weapon for any of those purposes? Probably not. But is it darn good for all of them? Oh yeah, it is. And if you only had one weapon, you'd have one weapon you could do everything you'd want to do with. So with that said, as an introduction, let's get into it. Let's take a look at the Taurus G2c. This is what it looked like 4 months ago when I got my Taurus G2c. This is what started it all over again for me and got me going crazy about weapons and getting involved with them again. At $250, this is a steal. Apparently the reliability, people have put thousands and thousands of rounds through these weapons and really haven't had any problems. I've had no problems. I've put hundreds of rounds through mine so far. So this is what it looked like when I opened it up, when I got it home. Of course, you had your paperwork. We're not going to go into that. You had the lock that will make this a safe weapon to have around the house. And it had another lock, so it had two of them. This is the trigger lock. It had an extra 12-round magazine and the weapon, and we'll look at that now. The Taurus G2c. Second magazine inside. This is a safe weapon. We can handle this safely for this video. Now, full disclosure, I have done one upgrade to it, and it is that sight. I put on a fiber optic sight on the front of this. This was from Lakeline LLC. So that is not a standard feature. So just don't expect to get that that fiber optic sight on the front of the weapon when you go and buy your G2c. Nice upgrade, but not standard. Everything else about this is completely stock, except for that sight. Now, some features about this that make it just wonderful for a first-time buyer. I have made the case that for first-time users, safety is paramount. It's absolutely essential. And this gun makes it very easy to operate it safely. One of the things you'll see, I'll hold this up close so you can see it, this little line going right here, this is a chamber loaded indicator. And when there is a round in the chamber, that is a little metal piece that'll stick up. And with it sticking up, you can feel it in the dark. You'll know that there's a round in the chamber. Or in the light, you can easily see that it's distended above the rest of the slide. Very useful. You won't accidentally mistake it for an unloaded weapon with that chamber indicator. The other safety features that you'll see on this, excuse me, on the trigger, you'll see that there's that little kind of trigger in front of the trigger. When you try to push the trigger back, not engaging that middle piece, it won't move. So if this is in a holster in your waistband or inside the waistband, we're going to look at some holster carrying options with this in a minute, but that cannot fire. You cannot have an accidental discharge with this unless you put your finger on the middle of the trigger, depress that, and then pull it back. So that's one safety, but it's not the only safety. Also controversial among shooters that have been in the game for a long time is the thumb safety, okay, right there. That thumb safety, when it's up, once again, even if I put my finger on the middle of the trigger, now it still can't fire. It still prevents it. I have to put that down. Now put my finger on the trigger, on the middle of it, pull it back, and now it'll fire. So this is a weapon I feel very, very confident concealed carrying. I don't fear my safety with this weapon in any way. It's extremely safe. And that's a big deal, especially when you're a first-time shooter. These are still the stock rear sights. And when you get the weapon, the rear sights, the front sight looks very much like the rear. It's a single white dot in the front. We've replaced it with the fiber optic, but imagine that's white, and that's how your sight picture will look. Perfectly acceptable to get started. A whole lot easier than the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard that I've talked about, and that's virtually impossible to get a sight picture from at all. Some other things that are really great for the first-time shooter. First of all, I'm going to put the magazine in. Remember, we have a safe weapon and an unloaded magazine, so this is still safe. But when we put the magazine in, I have a great grip on this weapon. I have a full grip for my full hand. Now, I don't have a huge hand. It's pretty average, maybe a small to average. I guess that's where but I have a great purchase on this weapon. I don't have any problem getting a full, solid grip on this weapon. That's a huge deal when you're first starting out shooting. You've got to be able to have a good grip. It's just critical. This one will allow you to do that. Some other little neat features about it. You'll see this little well right here. You see that? That's a little gouge out on the on the frame of the weapon. And when I take my proper grip and I put my finger down it goes right, it's a little mental indicator. Keep your finger there until you're ready to fire. Always keep your finger off the trigger and out of the trigger guard until you're ready to fire. One of the 4 basic rules of gun safety. That little detente in the frame, it's a little reminder for you to do that. You'll see that on the other side, it's there too. So if you're a lefty, you're still accommodated. But also, when I put my thumb in its appropriate position, it kind of lands right on that detente. It's pretty perfect for me. I can't complain about that at all. So these are little reminders to you that your grip and your safety are both important, and those reminders are built into the weapon. The takedown on this is really easy, and it's almost exactly like a Glock. Works much the same way. This is how I do it. My thumb around the beaver tail and my hand over the slide, and just slide it back just a hair, just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to grasp you see the little releases here. There's one on each side. And you're just going to depress those and pull the trigger, and that releases the slide. Now inside, one of the maybe unfortunate things the choices that they made when creating the G2c. Here, I'm going to see if we can cheat and get some. There we go. Get some focus. But the recoil spring is perfectly fine, but inside the rod is actually polymer. So what you're going to find is Lakeline LLC has done a great job with aftermarket products for the G series of weapons. And one of the things that they have come up with is a metal rod for the recoil assembly. So easy upgrade, super cheap. Although I must say, I've had no difficulties with mine. Now, I'm only several hundred rounds into my career with this weapon, so I don't have the greatest data set to base all of that on. But easy upgrade, something you can easily do very inexpensively. And so it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's nothing to worry about. It's much ado about nothing, as the bard would say. Putting it back together is nothing but, oh my, what have I done? There we go. Now we're back together. Pretty simple. One of the things that I mentioned, the Millennium series of Taurus weapons that really revolutionized the company, this is part of what has been upgraded since then. The stippling on the handle is much more aggressive, although because it's got these smooth spots in it, it's pretty comfortable in the hand. It doesn't feel like you're taking your hand apart with sandpaper. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out. This is the stock rear sight. And I don't know if, you can see that. There are 2 screws along the side of this rear sight. The sight is adjustable for windage, so you can really dial this down to a fine point. The front sight is going to lock in to a permanent position, but this is quite adjustable. So if you really want to get to work and get down to the fine points, which you should, this is still very applicable. It's a very useful sight, not one that needs to be replaced. The magazines are excellent. These are made extremely well. This is a 12-round magazine. It does have the viewing windows on the side at 6 and 12. so you can see how far you're loaded. Flawless. They have worked flawlessly for me. I've had zero problems with these magazines. It's a double stack holding 12. Double stack 12 makes this weapon still quite petite. Not tiny, tiny like a bodyguard, but quite small. And we're going to look at that right now about how easy it is to conceal. All right, it's fall right now, and we're into that kind of weather, so concealing a weapon becomes a lot easier when we start wearing outer garments that help us do it. But in this case, the weapon is easily concealed by just this simple vest. A jacket, a sweatshirt, any of those things will make it perfectly easy to conceal, even carried outside the waistband. But what if it's a little bit warmer outside? Or maybe you're indoors and you don't need your jacket, but you still want to carry. Well, an inside the waistband holster like the Soft Tuck that's made for this specifically does the job pretty well. I think I'm pretty discreet with this. There's only the slightest reveal that I've got anything going on. It could be almost anything. But inside, it's easily removable and accessible. And it's still small enough to be tucked away and hidden pretty well. It doesn't I think it's pretty discreet. It's not too bad. Not perfect. There's a little something there, but it's not bad. You can adjust it and find a better angle so it's a little bit more, and just kind of have a little bit of fold over of your shirt, and it's pretty discreet. So that's another way. That's with a inside the waist belt holster. Well, what if it's summertime and you're an athletic person or an active person? You like to jog or maybe ride a bicycle. Can you conceal it then? Well, I think so. It's not too bad on the back. I've got it in a belly band holster, carried at about 5 o'clock. Not too bad. Not too shabby. It's pretty discreet. Another thing that makes the Taurus G2c so great for a first-time shooter is the fact that it's a double action pistol. What does that mean? For you beginners, double action means that when I pull the trigger, not only am I going to fire the weapon, I'm cocking the weapon. So when I pull the trigger and I let it go, if that round did not fire, I can pull the trigger again and strike that same round again. So as I pull the trigger, I'm both cocking the hammer and releasing it and firing the weapon. Now, that means that I can have that second strike capability on a round that failed me, but there's another really great thing about that for the first-time user. Dry firing is the secret weapon for all great shooters. That's how they became great, and that's how they remain great. Dry fire practice is something that every great shooter has done and continues to do throughout their career. So, when you're dry firing, I encourage you to check out this video that I'm showing you up here, because the ELMS system, the electronic laser marksman system, is a laser round that you put into the that you chamber in your weapon. And so when you pull the trigger, it shoots a laser, and you can record where those laser hits hit. And it's extremely accurate. It's showing you exactly where you're pointing. When you have a double action pistol like this, you can continue to shoot those laser rounds. Now, if you have a weapon that's a striker fire or a single action, you have to cock it with the slide every single time you want to pull the trigger and pull that laser. So this is a weapon that you can really work on your accuracy in your home with a laser, and that's going to go a long way in making you a better shooter. Take a look at that video. We actually used this gun in that video, and it helped me make big strides. I'm still a pretty lousy shooter, but I was horrible, and this has really helped. As I said before, the grip on this is terrific. I've got a full purchase. I feel like I have a real weapon in my hands. I know it's there. I've got control of it. You can see that in these clips of me at the range today. The ability for me to control the recoil is pretty darn good. I have good control of it. It's not kicking back and getting crazy, and that's all because I can get a proper and full grip on the weapon. As we look downrange, we can see the same thing, that there's pretty decent control. I'm not going wildly off of my aim, and that is because of the grip that I'm able to have on the weapon. So feel confident that this is going to be a good weapon to get your mitts around and learn what you're doing. If this is your first weapon, it's a good choice. So that's my little intro to the G2c from Taurus. Fantastic weapon, unbelievably low price. It's still maintaining that price in the marketplace from what I've seen. $250 still seems to be the go-to dollar amount for this weapon, as well as the G3 and the G3c. Maybe the G3c is a little bit more right now, but they're all right in that zone. That's an incredible deal for a weapon this good and this versatile. So many things it can do them well. If this is your only weapon, you got a weapon for pretty much anything you could possibly want to do. Don't see any reason to replace it. I know that I won't be. No matter how big my collection grows, I've got a soft spot for this one. I think this was a great way for me to get back into weapons after a long, long hiatus for me. And it's been a joy. I can't recommend it enough. Taurus G2c. So that's all for 9mm Tuesday on Get on Target with Link this week. It's fall. I've gotten into my fall clothes. I've got my fall lid now back from my canvas tan one. Thank you, Mickey. Shout out to you. This was a Christmas present a couple of years ago. And I'm just so glad everybody's been joining us here and apparently enjoying some of this content. If you do, please like the video. Tell some people about it. If they're going to get into guns, this is a great way to go. Subscribe to the channel. When you ring the notification bell, we'll let you know when the next one drops. We're going to be bringing out new content Tuesdays and Thursdays. So come back here and join us on Get on Target with Link. And until you do, see ya.